Hey, welcome back to Hannity as we continue tonight from CPAC. This is more of my sit-down interview on the main stage with former Governor Jeb Bush. Earlier today, I was surprised. I was mentioning candidates. Some people, ooh, when I mentioned your name. I want to give you a chance to talk about your record directly to the people here at CPAC.
Well, first of all, for those that made a ooh sound, is that what it was?
Well,
I'm marking them down as neutral, and I want to be your second choice if I decide to go beyond this. But here's the record, and it's a record that may be hard for people to imagine because it's a record of accomplishment of getting things done, of taking conservative principles, running on them for starters, and having the courage to say I was for a statewide voucher program, that I believed that we should cut spending, that we needed to take on the trial bar, and all the things we did. So we created a world-class business climate. 1.3 million net new jobs were created in 8 years, more than any state but one. Don't tell Rick Perry, but more than Texas during those 8 years. I left the state with a 3% unemployment rate. We made Florida business friendly, and they came, and they created jobs. Our economy grew by something like 3.9% when the rest of the country was growing at 2.6%. We reformed our education system, as I mentioned, and Florida, it wasn't just the fight that mattered. We actually have led the country in rising student achievement. Kids in poverty now are the leaders in Florida. They outperform all of their peers in most of the categories in other places. Florida is a place where conservative principles have helped not just Republicans, but everybody. We eliminated affirmative action, Sean. I know there are people that come here and talk about the courage, legitimately so, of their efforts. I eliminated affirmative action by executive order. Trust me, there were a lot of people upset about this, but through hard work, we ended up having a system where there were more African American and Hispanic kids attending our university system than prior to the system that was discriminatory.
All right.
One more thing.
Yep.
I left the state with $9.5 billion of reserves. No drunken sailors were around. They called me Vito Corleone because we did veto 2,500 line items in the budget totaling $2 billion. We left my successor $9 billion plus of cash for a rainy day. And then we had the financial meltdown. And so conservatives need to be focused on not spending everything that they have, of cutting taxes to stimulate economic growth so that more revenue comes in people's pockets and the government gets their fair share as well.
Do you think you can lower taxes with $18.1 trillion in debt that we have now, $100 trillion in unfunded liabilities?
You can lower taxes and create more economic opportunity that will generate more revenue for government than any of the most exotic tax plans that Barack Obama has. Right. Yes, I believe that.
Let me ask. National security, national defense. Your brother predicted in 2007, unfortunately with pinpoint accuracy, what would happen if we left Iraq too early. We didn't keep intelligence on the ground, training forces on the ground. Now we have ISIS, people being beheaded, burned to death, a war on terror that is being waged, Coptic Christians, simultaneous beheadings. My question is, what would you do if you were the commander-in-chief to defeat ISIS?
By the way, and Mitt Romney was right in the debate about Putin. And Mitt Romney was right about a lot of things that the president just left off about not having a strong military. And so our position needs to be to re-engage with a strong military and a strong presence. We can't disengage in the world and expect a good result. As we pull back, voids are filled. Iraq is the best example of that. So where to from here? We need to reestablish relationships with countries that we have managed to mess up. I mean, we've managed to mess up almost every relationship in the world, if you think about it, including Canada, which is hard to do, but we've done it. But Egypt, we got it wrong 3 times in a row in the last few years. Jordan, the king comes asking for support. I've yet to see. Perhaps it went covertly, but I haven't heard anything. Israel, for sure. Turkey, all of these countries have doubts about America. We need to be engaged in the world, build a coalition to isolate and then put ISIS around a noose and take them out. And that can be done not by ourselves unilaterally. That has to be done with American leadership.
How would you do it? Specifically, what would be your first steps?
I like the idea that Senator Corker's talking about creating a safe zone for the creation of a free Syrian army, which we should have done 3 years ago, but begin that process. I like the idea of not putting conditions of boots on the ground so that we could have the intelligence capabilities and the special forces capabilities to make a difference. I like these ideas, but all of them require re-engaging with the neighborhood so that they consider it a high priority for their own interests to be able to participate in this. And the negotiations with Iran make this far more complicated. The idea that we're going to be tripping over, finding a deal, negotiating downward, creating an unsafe world, and basically legitimizing the Ayatollah and his nuclear capability is really troubling.
All the reports are that this deal that is being negotiated, that negotiations are going on now, that in fact the mullahs of Iran, who have threatened repeatedly to wipe Israel off the map, will in fact be allowed to enrich uranium. They have the delivery system.
Exactly right.
As president, what would you say to any deal that was struck before you took office as it relates to a...
Well, first, I hope that Congress acts on this and requires that this deal go back for approval in the United States Congress. I think that is the first step, so that we don't get to the point where the next president, because it'll be done by executive order, is forced to undo that by executive order as well. That would be the best thing to do. But we need to be clear that there should be no light between us and Israel, and we need to be clear that other discussions as it relates to Iran need to include their strategy of using surrogates to destabilize the region. Simply focusing on whether or not Iran has a weapon, and then now negotiating down where we're going to regulate it, is just bad policy.
What is your reaction to a president that can't acknowledge radical Islam or the Islamic State is Islamic? What is your reaction
that there's,
to that?
That this is all about economic uncertainty, and if they could just get jobs.
A jobs program for jihadis.
Yeah, so the jihadi, by the way, that was identified in London was a college graduate.
And rich.
And
Wealthy.
Yeah,
Bin Laden was rich.
This total misunderstanding of what this Islamic terrorist threat is very dangerous, because it doesn't allow you then to have the right strategy to deal with this. We need to heighten awareness of what this threat means and be honest about it, which is why I think Prime Minister Netanyahu's visit is going to be really important. He's going to be able to tell the truth on this. And the American people, I believe, are going to reject what President Obama is trying to do in Iran.
All right, I'm running out of time. I've got to wrap up in a minute. I've asked every other candidate that I've had an opportunity to interview real quickly.
Boxers.
That was not the question.
Oh, checking.
The top
Thank
five...
God it wasn't.
I'll leave that for NBC News. The top 5 agenda. If you become president, what are your top 5 priorities in the first 100 days?
Undoing by executive order, undoing what the president has done, not using authority he doesn't have. Creating a regulatory reform agenda that allows for investment to take place in our country. Presenting to Congress a plan to reform our tax code so that we can see inversions happen the other way, where companies invest in our country to create high-wage jobs. We need to get back to high sustained economic growth and then send a signal to the rest of the world that we're going to be their partner for peace and security.
All right, I'm going to do our lightning round, but before I do that, a lot has been written about Terry Schiavo. You used to have a license plate that said "Choose Life."
Yeah.
Any regrets over the Terry Schiavo fight?
No, we were the first state to have a Choose Life license plate that helped with crisis pregnancy centers around the country, around the state. And I'm pro-life. I also believe that the most vulnerable in our society need to be protected. And in this case, here was a woman who was vulnerable, and the court, because of our laws, didn't allow her. They were going to allow her to be starved to death. So we passed a law, Terry's Law, that was a year later ruled unconstitutional. I stayed within the law, but I acted on my core belief that the most vulnerable in our society should be in the front of the line. They should receive our love and protection, and that's exactly what I did.
Where you stand today? Okay. There was an indication in an article today. Gay marriage. Are you changing your position at all?
No, I believe in traditional marriage.
Okay. There are numerous reports that you're telling people privately that you are a moderate, but then public. How do you I describe myself as a Reagan constitutional conservative. How would you describe yourself?
I would describe myself as a practicing, reform-minded conservative, that I've actually done it.
Marijuana in Colorado, legalization, good or bad idea?
I thought it was a bad idea, but states ought to have that right to do it. I would have voted no if I was in Colorado.
Okay. I'm going to mention a few names. We've gotten some very interesting answers on this question. Hillary Clinton?
Foreign fundraising.
Okay.
We're supposed to do a word association?
Yeah, kinda. Yeah,
Okay.
you did good.
How'd that work compared to the
Very
other
good.
ones? Okay, just checking.
Bill Clinton.
Bubba.
All right, that's pretty funny. I do an impression. How you doing? I want to say hi to the cute chick in the back there. All right. The governor's not
Let me get a little bit over here.
Yeah, I know. Stay away from these radio and TV talk hosts. Barack Obama.
Failed president. Failed president.
You know, there's been such a big debate now about the issue of American exceptionalism.
Yeah.
In your view, do you, A, believe America's exceptional? And why do you love this country enough that you are going to go through the difficulty and the trials and tribulations of running for office? And that's our last question.
Well, I do believe in American exceptionalism. I got to be the chairman of the National Constitution Center for a couple of years. It's the center that honors our Constitution. It's a museum in Philadelphia. I urge everybody to go. And I fell in love with the Constitution again, being there in its presence. And this president has trampled over the Constitution. And put aside whether you like his beliefs or not, I imagine no one in this room does, the fact that he is disrespecting our history and the extraordinary nature of our country by doing what he's done is deeply disturbing to me. And so I think restoring a love of our country and its heritage and its tradition and expanding that love in a way that gives people confidence that they can rise up, that they can live the American dream, has to be one of the prime responsibilities of the next President of the United States.